Welcome into Outkick the Show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. We got a bunch of different stories to do today, and I see early on that my man is going to have to bring out his gun, and Clay Kyle is going to have to murder a man before I even tell you what the topics are. Oh my God, I love the smell of napalm in the morning. Don't step to me unless you want to be dead forever. Antonio Brown has gone out and he has gotten himself a golden mustache. This makes me a little bit nervous, all right? It looks like something out of Willy Wonka. I don't know what Antonio Brown is thinking, deciding to only make his mustache gold. It is an unbelievable look, all right? It looks like something out of Game of Thrones. It looks like something out of Willy Wonka. I don't know what in the world is going on with Antonio Brown's mustache right now, okay? When I see Antonio Brown's mustache, every single fiber of my being is saying, no one can trade for this man and pay him millions of dollars. But when I watch his production, I think, got to make it happen, all right? Adam Schefter came out and said there were 3 teams right now that are the most interested in Antonio Brown. This could obviously change, but this was his report that I think I woke up to on Saturday morning, if I'm not mistaken. He said the 3 teams were the Oakland Raiders, the Washington Redskins, and the Tennessee Titans. I think the Titans make the most sense. Let me explain why. Antonio Brown to the Raiders is a nonsensical move. Only John Gruden would trade a young Amari Cooper that is 7 years younger than Antonio Brown and then use a draft pick to take back a 30-plus-year-old guy. To me, Antonio Brown only makes sense if you think he is the next piece that can help you win a division and get into the playoffs. The Raiders are not close to winning the division. They are the 4th best team in the AFC West right now. They are much closer to a rebuild than they are a redo. Antonio Brown to the Raiders makes no sense. The Redskins are similarly probably going to go out and draft a new young quarterback. If you are going to draft a new young quarterback, then the last thing you want, I believe, is an outspoken wide receiver there to potentially destroy the young quarterback's development. The Redskins trading for Antonio Brown makes no sense to me at all. Of the 3 teams that Adam Schefter mentioned, and there could be other teams that are certainly of note that make sense, I think, beyond a doubt, the Titans make the most sense. Let me explain why. First of all, you have Marcus Mariota now in a 5th year, and you're paying him $20 million a year. He is being paid $20 million a year because the Titans have to decide this year, is he the long-range future of the franchise? Right now, you can make the argument, if you look at the Titans roster, Marcus Mariota has never had a good wide receiver. In fact, you can make the argument that the Titans have never had an elite game-breaking wide receiver in their 20-plus year history as the Tennessee Titans. The best wide receiver the Tennessee Titans have ever had is probably Derek Mason. You could make an argument before he got injured that Kevin Dyson was a big-time wide receiver, but neither of those guys are really close to Hall of Fame level. And Derek Mason is probably the best receiver the Titans have had since they came to Nashville. Not a knock on Derek Mason, but he was, I think, a 4th-round pick. He's a small guy. Nobody changed their game plan based on Derek Mason. The most explosive wide receiver the Titans have ever had is probably Kenny Britt, because he was capable of going off for 200 yards and a half like he did against the Eagles, and then he hurt his knee, and then he couldn't stay out of trouble, and then he kind of fell apart. Corey Davis is in his 2nd year, just finished his 2nd year, going into his 3rd year, top 5 pick. I'm not convinced yet that Corey Davis is going to be an all-pro caliber wide receiver. But if you paired him with Antonio Brown, I think every answer about Marcus Mariota you would know by year 5. You would have Antonio Brown, who is maybe the best receiver, certainly top 3 or 4 wide receiver in the NFL. You'd have Corey Davis, who's a big physical guy that potentially is going to be an all-pro caliber wide receiver. You would have, coming back from an injury and hopefully going to be a lot better again, Delaney Walker. You would have 2 running backs, Derrick Henry, who established that he can be a workhorse back, plus Dion Lewis, who's the small, shifty back out of the backfield. You would have Taylor Lewan, who, if he's being paid accurately, is paid as if he's the best left tackle in the league. You could redo the interior of the offensive line with your second and third round picks. I think for the number 19 overall pick, if you think you are close to being a playoff team that can make a run in the playoffs, Antonio Brown to the Titans actually makes a lot of sense. On top of that, right now you can argue legitimately the Titans are the fourth best team in the AFC South. Assuming the Jags add Nick Foles, which we talked about last week, Andrew Luck coming back healthy, very good chance Le'Veon Bell is potentially going to end up a Colt. They're going to surround him with better weapons, got a great offensive line there. Deshaun Watson coming back off of the injury, coming back now for a third year. The Texans with the Demaryius Thomas injury, assuming Will Fuller comes back healthy, have got two really good wide receivers in Will Fuller and obviously DeAndre Hopkins. You can make a strong argument that the Titans are the fourth best team in their own division and that the AFC South is the best division in all of football, and that if you want to win now, you have to be aggressive, incredibly aggressive, in order to put together the talent that makes the most sense. And you have got a somewhat veteran quarterback in his fifth year dealing with Antonio Brown. You've got a relatively small media market in Nashville where everybody's not going to be poring over every little thing that Antonio Brown does. Unlike when you're playing with Pittsburgh, unlike when you're playing in a bigger kind of primary role in a big city. I think all of these make complete sense. All of this militates in favor of, in my opinion, Titans trading number 19 overall pick for Antonio Brown. Get 3 good years out of him. That's better than you would do getting an All-Pro with most number 19 picks. Look at what happened last year with the Titans taking Rashaan Evans. He barely played. And maybe you can say that's a bad pick, but overall, the number 19 pick does not come in his first year and make a tremendous difference to a team's playoff chances. In the entire history of the Titans franchise in Nashville, the only guy I can think of who was a first-round pick that came in and made an immediate difference, the freak Javon Curse. So they've had first-round picks for 20 years. The only guy I can remember coming in as a rookie and being basically unstoppable as a rookie, Javon Curse, and leading a team. Now, Chris Johnson was really good and made a substantial difference as well. Those are probably the 2 best first-round picks in year 1 that I can remember. I think it's worth the risk. I think it makes sense to take that chance. Zion, still sitting as the race for the number 1 overall seeds races into the final week of the regular season. Kyler Murray, drama at the number 1 seed. R. Kelly, number 1 pick. R. Kelly, the interview that blew my mind when I watched it. If you haven't seen it, I may even try and play you the clip. Outkick Radio is on fire. I appreciate all of you out there, and we will dive into all of this and more. But we begin with what I think is my conspiracy theory as it continues to grow. Yesterday, in what should have been his final game ever in Cameron Indoor Stadium, Zion Williamson was a no-show on the court. After the game, cue the mystery sound effects. Coach K said he hasn't really practiced. He's probably not going to play on Saturday against North Carolina. And I am here to tell you, this man has decided, all signs are pointing towards he's not going to come back. If you think it made sense for Zion Williamson to sit out, why does it make sense for Zion Williamson to sit out 3 weeks and then come back to play in the ACC tournament? This is nonsensical. Think about logically what's going on here. You have a relatively insignificant, is the report, knee injury. Zion Williamson, according to Coach K, after Duke narrowly avoided by the slimmest of margins a loss to Wake Forest. Zion Williamson, according to Coach K, has barely practiced and probably is not going to play on Saturday on the road against UNC. The biggest rivalry of them all in the world of college basketball, and your team just got their ass kicked at Cameron Indoor Stadium. And you aren't able to come back for the biggest remaining regular season game of the year, and you expect me to believe that Zion is going to show up and play 3 straight days potentially after not playing for 3 weeks, and that somehow that is going to make him healthy? It doesn't make any sense at all when you actually look at all the evidence here. When I make arguments, I look at the facts, and then I try and look forward and make sense of those facts. Here are the facts. Zion supposedly tweaks his knee over 2 weeks ago. He now will not play, according to Coach K, on Saturday. He doesn't show up for the final home game of his Duke career. And you're telling me that after not playing for 3 weeks, he's suddenly going to show up and play for 3 straight days in the ACC tournament? Here's what I think is going to happen. Once the ACC tournament starts, Zion is not going to play. And then Coach K is going to say he wasn't quite ready. We expect to have him for the NCAA tournament. And then you know what's going to happen? He's not going to play in the NCAA tournament either. That's his right. I don't even begrudge Zion Williamson from not playing. But, and this is key, somebody needs to start to hold Duke accountable. I like to go to this thing called the Bracket Project. It brings together every possible bracket projection in the country. Do you know that Duke is still a #1 seed on every one of those bracket projections? Duke without Zion Williamson is a 3 seed at best. They're not even a 2 seed. They are 15 points different, offense and defense combined, without Zion Williamson. They should have last night lost to Wake Forest at home. Wake Forest is awful. They are atrocious. They are brutally bad. Duke always gets the favorable seeding in the NCAA tournament. They always get all the breaks, and I don't know why it is that nobody is holding them accountable here or holding Coach K's feet to the fire. Why have we not heard from Zion Williamson? That seems like a relatively easy thing to do, right? If Zion Williamson is going to come back, let him come talk to the media about the fact that he's going to come back and play. Why don't you let Zion Williamson talk to the media and tell everybody, hey, I'll be back for the ACC tournament. 100% I'll be there. Why has Duke not made him available for the media? Why after every game does Coach K say, he's not quite ready, but I think he'll be back soon. This doesn't make any sense unless you realize that Duke is trying to protect its seeding and doesn't anticipate having Zion Williamson back. That's the only logical statement that makes sense for all these facts right here. Why does this matter? Right now, Duke is still an overall #1 seed. Here are the 4 #1 seeds that everybody would have if they had functional brains and they were paying attention to everything that's going on, and frankly, they would be in this order. The #1 seed would be Virginia. Virginia, despite the fact that they lost to Duke, has the best resume in the entire country. They have been the most consistently dominant team all season. They have not lost to a bad team, which is something significant when you consider a resume. All right? #1 seed. I know they lost to a 16 team last year, but I'm just judging them on the regular season so far. #2 seed. #2 overall 1 seed should be Tennessee. The Vols are 27-3. They have 3 losses. They lost to Kansas in overtime in November, which was a much better Kansas team. They lost to LSU in overtime on the road. And they had 1 bad game all year where they lost to Kentucky, who's a pretty good team. They came back and they erased that loss to Kentucky by beating Kentucky worse than Kentucky beat them in their home game most recently. And they're coming off of a thorough beatdown delivered against Mississippi State. #3, overall #1 seed, right now, based on everything that we know, should be Gonzaga. The Zags have the 3rd best resume in college basketball. They lost to Tennessee head-to-head. Otherwise, they haven't really played anybody in the top 25 in months. But they have the 3rd best resume. The 4th #1 seed right now should be the Kentucky Wildcats. If you look at what they have done down the stretch, they lost by 1 point to LSU, very good team on a last-second tip, and they lost to Tennessee after beating Tennessee. Kentucky should be the #4 team. Now, there's still a lot of basketball to be played. There still is much that can happen overall. I have UNC as my number 5 team. My number 1-2 seed right now is UNC. If, as I expect, they beat Duke, then they would make a strong argument going into the conference tournaments that they should potentially be a number 1 seed. That's it. That's really all the teams that have a case right now to be a number 1 seed. There are 5 of them. Duke does not have a strong case to be a number 1 seed. Michigan and Michigan State play Saturday. Depending on what happens in the Big Ten tournament, you could make a case for one of those schools. I don't think that either one will be able to climb to the 1 seed level, but Duke in its last 5 is 3-2. They beat Wake Forest by 1 point, and they are 15 points worse than without Zion, and they are trying to protect their number 1 seed, which most in the media are too dumb to call them out on. Right now, Duke is not a number 1 seed. Anyone who has them as a number 1 seed is an insane man. Kyler Murray. I love the drama of college football / NFL draft time. We had Charlie Casserly come out and say, oh my God, he wasn't good on the board and he didn't do a good job in his interviews. And everybody in the media, sports media industrial complex suddenly has to have an opinion on Charlie Casserly's opinion that somebody else's opinion gave to him. All right, I want you to think about this for a minute because I do love how stories like this take off. We've got Charlie Casserly, who is not an NFL GM and is not an NFL coach. And he comes out and says that somebody who he doesn't identify said that Kyler Murray was not very impressive in his interviews at the NFL Combine, and everybody goes crazy to have an opinion about this story. Think about the level of remove here. That's why I love sports media. We got anonymous sources speaking to a guy who are sharing their anonymous opinion with him. He is then broadcasting their anonymous opinion. And everybody has an opinion on the anonymous opinion broadcast by somebody who only gets attention paid to him if he has opinions like this. Here are my thoughts. I don't really care how Kyler Murray looked on the board. A team is going to like him in the first round. I think that this could be a Josh Allen-like situation where you have to think about the motivation of the guys who said that he was awful on the board. All right? If he, in fact, is putting out this statement, it reminds me a little bit of the Josh Allen situation. Do you remember last year when suddenly on draft day, Josh Allen has news come out that he used a racial slur when he was like 12 years old? And it was on his Twitter account. Everybody was like, oh my God, it's the number 1 story in America. And I told you then that I thought it was a team that wanted him to fall down the draft board that released that information. I think this is a team that hopes that Kyler Murray is going to fall to them, saying that nobody else liked Kyler Murray. Here's what I think in general. I think that Arizona is going to take him number 1 overall. But I also think that Arizona could probably trade back if somebody else would be interested in their number 1 overall pick. I think it would make sense for Arizona to trade back, and they could still potentially get Kyler Murray. I also think there is a team out there that doesn't think Kyler Murray is going to be on the board when they pick, and they are the ones who are putting out this information. Remember, when you draft a quarterback, you don't really care about what they're like right now. You care about what you think they might be like in the years ahead. Laramie Tunsil, if you remember the bong mask video that came out right an hour or a couple of hours before the NFL draft, NFL teams have become incredibly talented at black arts, at black ops, at psychological warfare where they drop things right before the actual draft in hopes that they're going to be able to get a steal who otherwise would not be on the board when they pick. I think they all do their research. I think they have all these files about all these draftees, and then they decide to release their information at the best possible time to maximize their benefit. It's a lot like politics. You want to know how the media ends up with so many negative stories? They end up with so many negative stories because their sources give it to them. It's not like the media knows every little detail out there about every different candidate or every different player. They get tipped off and then they go and they chase it. This is a conspiracy unlike any other conspiracy. I believe what's going on with Duke is a conspiracy of silence. I think this is a conspiracy of noise. If you create enough noise that suggests Kyler Murray's not that talented of a quarterback, boom, it blows up. Here is what next is going to happen if it has not already happened. The usual suspects are going to line up and they're going to accuse Charlie Casserly's opinions of being racist because Kyler Murray is a black quarterback. Just wait. The bat signal will be up in the sky if it hasn't already happened. The minute that you say a bad word about a black quarterback, the racism brigade storms the ramparts and can't wait to accuse you of being racist. If it hasn't already happened, it's going to happen. Doesn't matter that last year Baker Mayfield got ripped to the high heavens. Remember all the talk about whether Baker Mayfield's temperament was right to go number one overall? Remember all the discussion about whether Baker Mayfield was too entitled or too arrogant? And all the discussion about his personality that had very little to do with his actual on-field production? That's what happens every year at the NFL Combine. Every potential top draft pick gets raked over the coals, regardless of their race. It doesn't matter. But they're going to storm the Bastille. They're going to storm the battalions here are going to mobilize, and they'll be waving the racism flag like crazy in short order. What I do love is this. Other people are starting to ask my question about whether or not Kyler Murray might have had prosthetic heels when he measured 5'10 and an eighth. I was suspicious when he measured 5'10 and an eighth because it was the perfect height. It was just tall enough to get him over 5'10, but not tall enough for everybody to say, my God, what's going on here? If you told me that I had tens of millions of dollars at stake if I could add 1.5 inches to my height, do you know what I would do? I would find a way to add 1.5 inches of height. Sometimes 1.5 inches matters. It's not always about the motion of the ocean, all right? Sometimes the motion of the ocean doesn't matter. Size can matter. Size mattered in a big way for Kyler Murray. And all I said on my radio show was, man, it's awfully convenient that this guy hit exactly 5'10 and an eighth. So that everybody would say, okay, he's basically the same size as Russell Wilson. But if he had been 5'11 and an eighth, nobody would have believed it. And if he had been 5'9 and a half, everybody would have lost their minds. 5'10 and an eighth was like the perfect score for a dumb guy to get on the SAT. You ever notice that? Like, when people get caught cheating on the SAT, it's because their dumbasses go from scoring like an 800 to scoring a 1400. Wait a minute. You went from barely being able to read to the 99th percentile. You must have studied your ass off in the 2 months between when you took the SAT the first time and the second time. That's when you get caught. They actually will flag your score if you skyrocket your SAT score too much. You want to hit that sweet spot where you go up like 150 or 200 points, just enough to get you eligible, but not enough for everybody to be able to see that you cheated. I think Kyler Murray hit the sweet spot. I think he had a prosthetic heel. Third conspiracy theory of the day. Think about it. He didn't run. He didn't weightlift. All he had to do was add 1 inch. Think about how much difference the shoes you pick matter. Now, he's barefoot. But how easy would it be to craft a fake heel? I'm just telling you, you got a lot of money at stake here. R. Kelly. R. Kelly. All right, are you ready? I don't know if you've seen this, But my guy Jimmy needs to interject this into the video. R. Kelly did a video, and my mind was blown when I watched this. I'm going to play it for you. He did a CNN interview. If you have not heard it, I'm going to play the entire thing for you right now. Here it is. Here's R. Kelly.
The point you're making is, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you have never held anybody against their will.
I don't need to. Why would I?
Well,
how stupid would it be for R. Kelly, with all I've been through in my way past, to hold somebody, let alone 4, 5, 6, 50, you said. Why, how stupid would I be to do that?
I didn't say you were holding.
That's stupid, guys.
I didn't.
Is this camera on me?
Yes, it's on.
That's stupid. Use your common sense. Don't forget the blogs. Forget how you feel about me. Hate me if you want to. Love me if you want. But just use your common sense. How stupid would it be for me to, with my crazy past and what I've been through, right now I just think I need to be a monster and hold girls against their will, chain them up in my basement, and don't let them eat and don't let them out unless they need some shoes down the street from their uncle. Robert, stop it. Y'all quit playing. Quit playing. Robert. I didn't do this stuff. This is not me, y'all. I'm fighting for my life. Y'all killing me with this. I gave y'all 30 years of my career.
Robert.
30 years of my career. Y'all trying to kill me. You're killing me, man. This is not about music. I'm trying to have a relationship with my kids, and I can't do it. Y'all just don't want to believe the truth. You don't want to believe it.
At this point, we briefly pause the interview to give Kelly a moment. His publicist helped calm him down.
I hope this camera keep going.
No, we're going to let the camera keep rolling. This is not true.
This is not, doesn't even make sense. Why would I hold all these women? Their mothers and fathers told me, we're going to destroy your career.
But Kelly's emotions remained raw.
It's real girls out there missing. It's real young girls out there being abducted, being raped, okay? They really are on chains. They really do have chains on their wrists, and they can't get out. Robert, and they're ending up buried in dead.
Robert, we have to have a conversation. Really, I don't want you just ranting at the camera.
I came here for them to hear me talk. But I need help.
What kind of help?
This is the kind of help I need.
Yes, what kind of help?
I need somebody to help me not have a big heart. Because my heart is so big. People betray me, and I keep forgiving them.
You sound like you're playing the victim here. You sound like R. Kelly. You do. When I listen to you, it does sound like you're playing the victim
I'm just telling the truth. And the reason I'm emotional, Robert, and I apologize for that, is because this is the first time I was able to say something. Yeah. I've said nothing.
All right, I got to stop it. You can go watch the rest of this on CBS. I tweeted out the video. This is one of the most amazing interviews I've ever seen. Gayle King at CBS did it. And I was watching it, and my jaw dropped. My jaw dropped. While I was watching it, my 4-year-old, he loves the new Spider-Verse movie, right? We watch the Spider-Verse movie all the time. My 4-year-old comes around, and he's like, Dad, this is unbelievable. Dad, what is this? This is crazy. My 4-year-old gets up from the couch where he's watching Spider-Verse and has to see what's going on there. It's extraordinary. It's an unbelievable interview. R. Kelly is, I think, evidence of what would have happened to Michael Jackson if he were still alive in the wake of the documentary that aired Sunday and Monday on HBO. I had a big discussion about that on the Monday show of Outkick, if you haven't already heard or watched that. Last night, LeBron and the Lakers with an unmitigated disaster on behalf of the NBA and on behalf of the Lakers. Fun facts for you. The Lakers are 4-23 in their last 27 games against the Clippers, a team they play in their own building. LeBron, I agree with you, JG. LeBron is no longer the best player in the NBA. Every game comes with another moment of viral disinterest from LeBron James. The ball's rolling up the court, and he picks it up and shoots a three like it's a backyard pickup game. Also, on top of that, as if that weren't crazy enough, Kuzma. Kyle Kuzma is shoving him out to cover a man in a wide open, otherwise three-point shot. This is an ugly decline for LeBron James, but it's an uglier decline for the NBA. Right now, do you know who is curled up in the fetal position, weeping silently? It is the Turner and ESPN executives who gave the NBA over $1 billion. The ratings have tanked this year, as I told you back in October they would, with LeBron James moving out to the West Coast, and the playoff ratings are going to be an unmitigated disaster as well. That's because, as I've been telling you, despite all the cheerleading from the NBA media, the NBA doesn't have a league, it has a player. LeBron James is like a Marvel franchise for the NBA. What I mean by that is, every time LeBron James comes out with a new season, it's like a new Marvel movie. It may not be a great movie. It may even feature a superheroine who is saying, I don't like white people. I don't even care if white men like this movie, which is what this Brie Larson chick said about the new Captain Marvel movie, which sometimes I just see these things and I'm just like, are you kidding me? If you said that about any other race or gender, people would lose their minds. But you say it about white men, it's permissible. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. But when you actually break down LeBron James, he is what Hollywood loves. Every season with LeBron James offers you the two things that lead to success. Something new, it's a new year, anything can happen, but also something familiar, all right? Something new meets something familiar. That's LeBron James every year. And for the last 8 years, even though his teams have not necessarily been that great, and even though they've gotten waxed once they got to the conference finals, they've at least offered up the potential of being able to beat the Warriors. That's not going to happen anymore. ESPN and Turner are in a disaster mode right now. They are scrambling because nobody is going to watch the NBA playoffs without LeBron James. The Warriors against the Clippers is a 0. It's an NBA TV schedule game that nobody actually watches. The Warriors against the Lakers, even if it's not a great series, a lot of people watch it. This is a messy, messy situation. I think the NBA is now going to reap what it sows. Also, in conjunction with Adam Silver saying the players are too active on social media, I'm waiting for intelligent people to start to point out that social media might be hindering the overall brand of the NBA because it's leading players to be unhappy, to not try their best. I'm close to swearing off regular season NBA betting because you just have no idea what kind of effort you're actually going to get from teams or players on any given night in the NBA. If somebody loses in college football or the NFL or in college basketball once you get to March, it's usually not because they aren't interested at all in playing the game. It's just because somebody else played better. Last night, the Bucks lost by 9 to the Phoenix Suns. You can't tell me that's anything other than the Bucks just being completely uninterested in playing in that game. That's all it was. And if you were unfortunate enough to have the Bucks as part of a money line parlay like I was, it wasn't that you were wrong. It was just that the team didn't show up and actually play. And that is, I think, a huge mess for the NBA. So we start there, LeBron in trouble. Here is a story that I think should be getting a lot more attention than it is. Based on the precedent that we set last year, when Lamar Jackson was asked to work out at wide receiver, the industrial complex of far left-wing woke warriors in the sports media went crazy arguing that it was racist of Lamar Jackson to be asked to play wide receiver. This year, Nick Fitzpatrick, who started for 3 years and posted nearly 10,000 total yards of offense, was asked to play tight end. Trace McSorley, who started for 3 years for Penn State and posted massive offensive numbers, was asked to play defensive back. Do you know how many people out there were actually raising this as an issue or even mentioning multi-year college football starters who won a lot of games? Trace McSorley won the Fiesta Bowl. He also won the Big Ten title. Nick Fitzpatrick, very successful quarterback for Mississippi State. Nick Fitzgerald. Do you know how many people out there even mention, barely, the fact that they were asked to play different positions? I haven't seen hardly anyone even mention it. That's because it doesn't fit the agenda. The NFL is a meritocracy. Regardless of your race, your gender, your ethnicity, your religion, if Bill Belichick found out that a transgender dwarf was good at playing quarterback, he would trot him out there and probably even deflate the football so his tiny little hands would be able to hold the football more effectively. It doesn't matter anything at all in the NFL about your race. And here is a point that nobody ever takes the next step to. If, in fact, the NFL were racist against people based on their position, then you would be able to take advantage of their racism and get a more advantageous team. And you know what I think we got going on right now? I think that's happened with Bill Belichick and white wide receivers. I think the reason why Bill Belichick has gone out and signed as many white receivers as he has is because he thinks they're fundamentally undervalued on the overall market because they're white. Hogan, Edelman, Wes Welker, you name a white wide receiver over the years, Bill Belichick has been willing to take a risk on them. None of them have been that highly paid in the grand scheme of things. He's found them and found opportunity because I think he saw them based on their race and thought they were undervalued. Moneyball, indeed. And that's the best way to solve problems in the country. It's not to impose quotas. It's not to ensure that every profession looks exactly like the population of America as a whole. It's to allow the marketplace, which is highly competitive, to find the best people and put them into place for jobs. This is why the whole equal pay for equal work thing is so stupid to me. Women, like they've been hitting this complaint over and over again. Women make 20% less. But when you factor in childcare and leaving the labor market for years, they actually make pretty much the exact same as men. And my argument all along has been, from a pure market-based perspective, if wage inequality existed and women were paid 20% less than men, despite the fact that they're every bit as good at their jobs as men are, why wouldn't every company in America only hire women and cut their labor and employment costs by 20%? This is just a simple market-based solution if something were actually not working. If there is a huge cadre of people who are incredibly talented at doing all sorts of work that Google could otherwise employ people, and they're not taking the best people in their jobs, then somebody else will eventually beat Google, right? If Google is consistently not hiring the most qualified people to work in their employment, then somebody else will hire more qualified people and will eventually beat Google. This is a markets-based solution to things that doesn't require there to be structural sexism or structural racism or anything else. Now, and this is actually a fascinating discussion point, if Google is able to hire anyone to do its jobs and their hiring process doesn't matter, then that's a sign that they have a monopoly and they need to be regulated, right? If Google has created such a monopoly in the world of search that literally their employment hires don't matter and they can go out and hire anyone and the company continues to be as successful as they otherwise were, this is a no-brainer. It's a sign that Google or Amazon or any of these other companies have become default monopolies, that they don't have to hire the best person to be able to be the best. And maybe that's the argument. That's an intriguing argument. That's actually a smart argument. The Google should be more diverse because it doesn't matter who they hire is actually an argument that Google has a monopoly. It should matter immensely who Google hires because they're in a highly competitive industry, and if they don't hire the right people, then somebody else will hire better people, and they will end up losing. But this all circles back around to my argument about selective bellyaching over racial issues and pretending that they aren't endemic across the entirety of the NFL. Tim Tebow was asked to play tight end. Matt Jones, quarterback for Arkansas, was switched to wide receiver and became a first-round pick, even though he played quarterback at Arkansas. Eric Crouch was switched to defensive back, even though he was a quarterback at Nebraska. Those are all really successful players, including Heisman Trophy winners. Scott Frost as well, Nebraska quarterback who was asked to change positions. And this is utterly crazy to me that you selectively pull out a guy like Lamar Jackson and argue that he's being treated differently than everybody else. I just want you to be aware that there's been barely a blip of acknowledgement over the fact that Nick Fitzpatrick, 3-year starter, was asked to play tight end, and 3-year starter Trace McSorley, who won the Big Ten championship and nearly got his team into the playoff, was asked to play defensive back at the Combine, and nobody even blinked over that at all. All right, pretty fascinating. Lamar put his head down and won games as a rookie. Lamar Jackson sucks. All right? If you want to buy stock in Lamar Jackson, go do it. Go buy the over total on the Baltimore Ravens. And when you do it, go watch what happened when he actually got into the playoffs. He has absolutely no chance to be a good quarterback based on what we have already seen from Lamar Jackson. If he can develop into a passing quarterback, more power to him. But so far, he hasn't been able to do anything. All right? He got to be able to make plays. He's got to be able to make plays from the pocket. All that matters in the NFL is, can you convert a first down on 3rd and 8? That's ultimately it. 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 12, when everybody knows you have to drop back into the pocket and complete a pass in order to move the sticks. Can you do it? Lamar Jackson couldn't do it in year 1. They designed that ridiculous running offense. He's going to get blown up like RG3 did, like Tim Tebow did, and like Vince Young. He's like it's like a smaller, less athletic version of Vince Young. Ain't going to go well for him. Ain't going to go well for him at all. I'm going to block this guy because I don't like people who come in and just make arguments because, first of all, if you put your race in your name, you're going to get blocked if I happen to look at you and you continue to talk. I'm not interested. It's like, it's such an identity politics laden universe. If your Periscope name includes your race, you probably aren't saying anything very intelligent because you can't even look past your actual physical appearance, even when you're anonymous on a Periscope feed. Secondly, Baker Mayfield, pretty phenomenal year 1, and I think he was far and away the best quarterback. Sam Darnold, second best, clearly. Josh Allen, running quarterback, doesn't look like he can do anything, and I feel the same thing about Lamar Jackson. Josh Rosen, we'll see. All right, a couple of other things here that I want to get to. Not the kind of guy to brag or draw attention to myself, but we took the Wonderlic on Lock It In, and I got a 44. Out of a 50, that's the 99-point-something percentile. So I'd encourage you guys, footballiq.com, I think is the website if you want to go take the Wonderlic yourself. It'll give you a little bit more appreciation for the Wonderlic in general, right? Go take it. Vince Young got a 6. You'll be like, how in the world is it possible to get a 6 in that process? All right, Adidas. Did you guys pay attention to this? The Adidas reps got sentenced in New York City today. Adidas put they got, I think 2 of the guys got 9 months. 1 of the guy got 6 months. It's a big story. And I think it's been undercovered. I think this jury got this case completely wrong. Okay? I think the federal government got this case completely wrong. They argued that there was a fraud perpetrated upon universities by players being paid to go play basketball for them. The fraud was that somehow made them ineligible, but they only found out that it made them ineligible because of this investigation. I think this is a real mess that we have created now with the federal government and the FBI investigating whether or not players were being paid. Essentially what that jury did, and juries have a lot of power, and we have to respect their verdicts, but sometimes juries can get things wrong, and certainly they can set the wrong precedent. Effectively, what that jury did was codify NCAA rules and say these are laws. And that if you violate an NCAA rule and the government decides to prosecute you under federal statutes, you can be sentenced to prison, which is what just happened with these Adidas executives. Now, there's a second trial coming up. And if you're not paying attention to this story, 2 college basketball coaches have been subpoenaed and will have to go under oath and actually testify. LSU's Will Wade and Arizona's Sean Miller. This has the potential to be a total mess for college basketball because it's one thing to lie to an NCAA investigator. It's another thing to get on the stand and have to swear under oath that you were going to tell the truth. They may take the 5th to avoid incriminating themselves. This is a delicate dance. I'm not even sure how it's all going to be resolved, but I am fascinated to see come April what's going to happen with these situations. It would not surprise me if Will Wade and Sean Miller both end up losing their jobs, which would be ironic because Will Wade has had a lot of success this year at LSU. We have a 3-team race for the SEC championship tonight. Kentucky is at Ole Miss. I got Ole Miss +5. Show up if you're down in Oxford. Rebels, I need you loud because I got you +5. And then I've got Mississippi State +8 at Tennessee. I think Mississippi State's going to keep it close. I think that's going to be a good game, too, tonight in the SEC. Tomorrow, LSU is at Florida. Early preview, I think Florida wins that game outright. All right, this story is unbelievable. When I saw this, I was like, are you kidding me? This can't possibly be real. I saw this and my mind almost exploded. We've got a lot of crazy arrests over the years. A lot of wild arrests in the world of athletics. Have you heard about Kellen Winslow? Remember, Jamel Hill said that Kellen Winslow was being stereotyped because he was black when he was arrested, and it turned out that he had been raping women, allegedly. What's wild about this is former NFL tight end Kellen Winslow has been jailed without bail after he allegedly performed lewd actions in front of a 77-year-old woman at a California California gym. Winslow is accused of touching himself in front of the 77-year-old woman and touching the woman on her arm and foot in a hot tub in separate incidents 9 days apart. Kellen Winslow, the soldier, putting a move on a 77-year-old woman at the gym. He's facing misdemeanor charges of lewd conduct, battery of an elder, and willful cruelty to an elder. He'd been on a house arrest stemming from charges that included kidnapping and rape from an alleged March of 2018 crime spree. He's pleaded not guilty to that. He faces life in prison, spent 10 years in the NFL. He is a soldier, and evidently he loves old women. This is a wild and creepy story. LSU fans, don't be dumb. People say, oh, is there proof of the money transfer? You don't have to have proof of the money transfer to find an NCAA violation. All you have to have is evidence that there was an offer made in excess of a scholarship in order for it to be an NCAA violation. All right? This is important because a lot of people don't understand that. Offering a payment to someone is a violation of NCAA. Offering any benefit in excess of a scholarship is an NCAA violation. So the payment itself is not important in terms of demonstrating that there was an NCAA violation. What Will Wade is on tape doing is plenty to get him fired by LSU and to get him suspended potentially by the SEC if LSU won't step in and do anything here. Because it's a bad look for the conference as well.